Hello, friends and beautiful people. It is Kathryn Massell. Hello, elevated consciousness coach and 5D visionary, coming to you with all things ascension, episode 18. We're talking about something that it's high time we talk about and reevaluate. The pitfalls of lowering your vibration to facilitate or accommodate others, to make others comfortable, in other words. And this is something that I see happening a lot. I see it happening with my clients. I even had it happen with myself a little bit. So I had to snap myself back into 5D attention. Hey everybody. Looks like Facebook is just starting to recognize my video. Welcome. Happy Sunday. Support Sunday, All Things Ascension, episode 18. There I am. Say hello, let me know you're here. Let's see. It is storming here in Tahoe. We've got one of those freak late April snowstorms. So I may lose the video feed, and for that I'm sorry. Hi, David. Nothing I can do about that, really. But we'll hope that we are working with pure source energy here and that it is helping us to keep this video going. So this is a real tasty topic, a very timely topic. And I see and I feel a lot of energy in the collective of people being really, really tired of having to work so hard to maintain their vibration, to stabilize their frequency in the light of a lot of chaos and turmoil and upheaval that's happening around us all the time. And we get a little soul sick. We get exhausted. Heart sick would be a better way to say it, because it's really our soul that never gets tired. It's our human that gets exhausted from living out of alignment with our soul being. So when we see things or read things like your soul is tired, your soul doesn't get tired. Your soul is on a completely different energy grid. And I'm going to talk about that here a little bit, because this is really important to understand which energy grid you are pulling energy from and which one you are funding. Physically exhausted and wake up beat up. Yeah, a lot of us are. And we've got other things going on now too. We have massive geomagnetic storms. We've got a full moon that's really intense. We've had a lot of solar activity that has been really fiery. But that fire is purifying a lot of stuff and burning stuff to ashes too. So for someone who works a lot with dissolving, collapsing timelines, this is actually a good thing to see, because this solar activity is actually burning through a lot of old timelines that are ready to die out because there isn't enough energy to fund them anymore. So it's like these last gasp of planetary timelines are really getting cleaned up finally, burning them to ashes, and that's a good thing. Hi, Kathryn. So I feel you and I hear you, and when I say I feel you, I mean it, because with the work that I do in the superconscious, and this is the place that I go to source not only the field that replenishes me, but it's where I source information that is beyond the collective mind, the collective planetary mind and body, the logos of information that is often inaccurate. When I go into the superconscious realm to source information and content from my sources, from my books, etc., this is where I go. It's where I go to replenish. It's where I go to get true information that is untainted by often unreliable and manipulated information that's part of the planetary logos of 3D. And when I go into this space and I feel into the collective, I can often, hear the echoes and feel the rippling out of the vibration of the grief. Working through a lot of grief right now. We're working through, hi Tammy, happy belated birthday. We're working through a lot of grief of lost ways of being, lost structures that have defined our reality for hundreds of years. Everything's changing, everything is shifting, and we are grieving for that. We're grieving for that loss. Even if it wasn't the best way of being that supported most of the people on the planet, we're still grieving for it because our identity is wrapped up in that. And we are grieving for the fact that it feels like it's taking so long to anchor our new vibration on this planet and turn the tide of mass consciousness towards something that is more unifying and more gratifying for all. We feel like, yes, we've done a lot of work, and there is a place where we're standing in appreciation and honor for the work that we've done on ourselves, if you want to call it shadow work, or the release that we've done to bring ourselves more online and more in tune with our soul being. We can stand in a place of appreciation and honor for that, but there's still this like not enough mentality around that. And again, working from ego, working from a different energy grid, when you do that, that's exhausting. And so when I feel into this collective energy, what I get is from a lot of people, I'm done. Isn't it just easier for me to just give in? To just go back to the status quo? I mean, my God, I've been doing all this work now, and it just seems like it keeps piling up. I do all this work, but then there's more to do. There's more people who come into my life and make me take a hard look at who I am and what I'm doing and what I'm saying and how I'm behaving, and making me question that all over again. And that's exhausting and that's depleting, right? Again, because we're an ego when we do that. And we're looking at the things, the themes that are still playing out on a planetary, global scale that is just like, really, this old chestnut again? My God, aren't we beyond this at this point? I feel you on all these things. And that's why it's so important to have this conversation. And ask me questions here if you want to. If you feel like, Kathryn, what's up with this? Whatever. Go ahead and throw that in the comments and I'll get to it. But as we're leaning in more, and we are, into 5D, we can't get there without going through 4D. It's not that you just get to skip dimensional realms because 4D is an inconvenient place emotionally and energetically. It is a place where, and I've talked about this in my Quantum Quintessence Society when we studied 4D at length over 4 weeks, that going through 4D, which is a highly emotional realm, and it holds the kind of collective energetic soup of the hive mind of mass consciousness, which is a messy place to hang out, but we have to go through it. We can't get over it until we go through it. And 4D, going through 4D is really equated with, because it's also the realm of archetypes and myths, the hero's journey. And those of us who feel that we hold that coding for championing the light for humankind, you are that hero, you're that heroine. And you wouldn't have been given that torch of light to hold if there wasn't some gift that you brought to bear in this planetary realm at this time. And just knowing that can be a good nugget to kind of keep you comfy and keep you warm for a little bit. But I know it doesn't always last very long. To have that feeling of like, I know I'm here to really create a wave of change in this world. And in the wake of me, lead people with honor and integrity behind me to create this wave of change. Sometimes just knowing that, and a lot of us really do know that, isn't enough, right? It's like there's always more to do. There's always bigger change that needs to come. There's always more that I need to commit to. But when you go into that place of knowing that you're here to be a torchbearer, to bring the light, to be a divine warrior of the light, you must always, in this same connection, in the same moment of connection, go into that place of your God self instead of going into ego. Because the second you go into ego, you're in that contrast of, but I'm way over here and what I want is over there. The second you have that illusion of separation, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to be depleted. You're going to be out of alignment with source, with your mission, with your soul path, with your divine destiny, with the energy and the grid that funds you from your heart space to do the great work that you're here to do without feeling exhausted or without feeling depleted. So the second you go into, let's just say, honoring or appreciating how far you've come, and you've come really far, trust me, my friends, you wouldn't be watching this video if that weren't true. When you go into that place of honoring and appreciating how far you've come, all the great work that you've done to clear out everything that you are not, to move the mountains away that have literally kept you out of alignment with Source, you've done that. And you need to give yourself a pat on the back for it. And also know that you didn't do it alone. It was that commitment that you have at a soul level to be in your greatness, to be here in your highest and greatest and best capacity, not just for you, but for all. You have a wave of support that shows up. It is often unseen, it is often unknown, but it is support nonetheless. And you always have the ability to ask for it as well. When you make that level of commitment to be in a level of greatness for yourself and for the planet, for this human family that we call our community here on Mothership Earth, you have untold amounts of support showing up. That's just without asking for it. But never forget, when you get those moments of feeling really depleted and exhausted and maybe even hopeless and desperate, ask for help. What I do is I say, guides, teachers, masters, angels, dragons, and I call in my dragons because when I get really low in my energy and I call in my 5D and 7D dragons, whew, I get like a huge boost in my energy. Dragons are really, really here to help at this time. Talk about divine warriors of the light. Dragons are that. So if you're feeling really low, really helpless, without any fire or passion, call in your dragons. Even if you don't know who they are, call them in. But I always say dragons, guides, masters, teachers, angels, all aligned with 100% pure source light. I need your help and I need it fast. And you'll feel this kind of, almost like I can breathe now. I can take more air into my chest. I can expand my energy a little bit more, because when we get in that place of ego exhaustion, we contract, we pull in, we close off the energy of our heart, and we kind of create a heart wall, a little heart cave to protect ourselves. Those of us who are really in the light, when we're in our contrast and we're out of our light, that's what we do. We close this center off. We put up a little heart wall. And if we keep doing that, it's like the heart wall gets more fibrous and thorny and wiry over time. And we forget who we are. Kathryn says, you're describing my life lately. I know. I feel you. I do. And David says, I've been periodically mourning and processing sadness. Yes. I bawled my eyes out the other night and I just needed to do it. And I had the weirdest trigger, but I felt all the pent-up emotion of things that I've been working on. I felt pent-up collective emotion. And even though sometimes you feel like the collective stuff isn't yours to work on, you're never not part of the collective. So you can release it on behalf of the collective. And when I bawled my eyes out, I mean, I couldn't see the next morning. My eyes were so puffy. It was a beautiful sight. My husband was like, what the hell happened to you? Are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. I needed to get it out. I needed to get it out. And sometimes we have to have that crazy amount of release where we'll just like sitting, eating some microwave popcorn and bawling our eyes out into the popcorn and watching some stupid sappy movie on TV and just letting it all go. We need to do that. And those of us who feel that role very keenly of holding light and holding space for the collective, just like you have to do that, you have to clear for the collective and release for the collective sometimes too. It doesn't mean that's always your stuff to work on, but just like you want to do upgrades for the collective, like I work on planetary grids and timelines, and I do that for the collective a lot. But I'll also release in different ways in my human. And when I do that, then I feel cleaner, I feel clearer, and then I've got room and I've got the funding energetically to do now what I need to do to get back to work, in other words. So when we are doing all this work to anchor ourselves into, stabilize in 5D, we have to make that hero's journey through 4D, which is we got to go through the emotions. We got to feel it to go through it. We got to feel it to move it, right? That's 4D. And we are really, really in the thick of 4D right now, and the planetary timeline, and probably in your own individual timeline as well. Lots of emotional upheaval, lots of questioning, lots of feeling like I'm being tested, but you're never being tested. The universe never tests you. That implies the universe has judgment. The ego has judgment. The universe has no judgment. The universe is only and ever asking you to choose, to make a choice. And when you're aligning more and more with the God choice, that which is aligned with your highest and best good, the highest and best good for all, and with the least amount of resistance for all involved, you are holding the light for yourself and for the collective. And you are more and more, as you make those God choices, you are stabilizing your frequency in 5D. You're allowing yourself to move out of the hub of consciousness of 4D, which is kind of a dualistic, chaotic mess emotionally. And you're allowing yourself to stabilize in 5D. This is really important. This is really important for those of us who feel like we are having a hard time holding our light. Those of us who feel like we have to dumb it down. We have to dumb down our energetic value. We have to dumb down our frequency to make others comfortable or help people understand us or whatever. Let me remind you of something while we're in the thick of this right here. You are under no obligation whatsoever to dumb down your frequency for the sake of another's comfort. I don't care how close that person is to you. You are under no obligation to explain yourself, to explain your light to someone else in a way where you have to choose wording that makes you feel like you have to go out of your personal vibration you've worked so hard to achieve in order to do that. You are in and under no obligation to make someone feel comfortable with you. And in fact, when you are in your light and you are holding your integrity, the virtue ethics of 5D, which I'm going to talk about in a second, when you are fully in alignment with the virtue ethics of 5D, that means your thoughts, your words, your actions, following up with your commitments, they're all lined up. It's all in alignment. They are all in agreement and they have a coherence. If 5D had a way of being that we could define with 3D words, it would be called virtue ethics. We talked about this week, didn't we, David, in Quantum Quintessence Society? That the virtue ethics is what holds the dimensional space of 5D and integrity. This is your words, your actions, your thoughts, following up with your commitments. It's all in alignment. When you do that, you are helping to stabilize yourself in 5D so that you can not only anchor that frequency, embody it, but keep yourself there. We have to keep lining up what we're saying, what we're doing, what we're believing, how we're behaving, the kind of commitments that we agree to and hold up. This is all in alignment with virtue ethics. And the second you waver with that, this is how fragile and precious it is. When you waver in that agreement of virtue ethics, which helps you to stabilize the frequencies of 5D, you're not only not helping yourself, you are basically minimizing the importance of tipping mass consciousness towards unity consciousness. Your personal ingredient, which is your vibration, you're opting out of that tipping point because you're not following up in word and action and deed with virtue ethics, meaning it's not all in agreement. So you're maybe placating someone somewhere in your life because it's just easier to preserve the status quo, or you're exhausted with trying to constantly cajole that person and make them feel okay with you for whatever the fuck that means. Or you're not honoring your commitments to yourself, not just honoring your commitments to others. I'm talking about honoring your commitments to yourself. Think about all the shadow work that you've done to get here right now. That is a commitment and a dedication that you made to yourself to stabilize 5D on this planet, to stabilize 5D in your life. When you take a misstep away from that and you move out of integrity with that, you move out of alignment with that, and there's no gray area there. You're either in alignment or you're out. There's no, well, I'm going to dip a big toe in alignment today and I'm sort of in alignment. That is the ego trying to placate your human so that you feel better when you just take a step that keeps you lined up with that ego human that's like, I'll just do this and I'll just deal with this today because it's easier. And I just don't want to deal with this person today, or I don't want to deal with this thing today. So I'll just do this today and I'll go back to it tomorrow. Your soul self, your God self is watching you. It is seeing and is involved in everything that you're doing at that time. It's willing to go along with the game because it says, okay, we'll play this out. Because here's what happens. One way or another, your path does get redirected towards your soul's journey. But you can either take the more painful path of most resistance, which is you saying, and you really, it's a weird double-edged sword because you think you're actually making it easy for yourself, but you're negating all that great work that you've done to get where you are. So it's like you took 5 steps forward and you just took 10 steps back. And your God self doesn't judge you. It just says, okay, in the 3D linear scale of things, it's just going to take a longer time for us to reunite with that soul's path and get back into alignment again. But I'll let her or him play that out so they can see again that they're just having a little dance with contrast that they need to do for whatever reason. I'm not judging because I'm the God self, but I'm going to let it play out, and then they're going to get back to where they need to be. But how many times do you have to go through that before you realize how much extra work you're setting yourself up for? Does this make sense? Is this resonating with you guys? Who else is there? Okay, because I realized that I did this week. And it was my choice because, hey, as a 3D human, we have free will choice. Yes, we are always being guided by our God self, but we, in our ego human, have every right to exercise our free will to experience as much contrast as we want. And all the God self does is compassionately witness us. All our guides, our dragons, our masters, our teachers, our spirit team does is compassionately witness us and say, all right, well, we'll be here when she or he is done with that. When they call on us again for help, we'll be here. But God, I wish she would just get it already, right? And I have to laugh about it because it really is that ridiculous sometimes. That's how it feels for me anyway. And I know it's painful to be in those moments where you have that realization then, like, oh crap, I did it again. Why though? Oh crap, I did it again. I placated this person again, or I said yes to this situation again when I really should have said no, and had more spiritual hygiene and had more spiritual boundaries about what I want to fund my energy towards. And we want to kick ourselves. Again, that's your ego. The best thing you can do is just call in God self, God self, God self. Allow me to compassionately witness what I've just done. Forgive myself, laugh at it. As my friend and coach likes to say, Joanna Hunter, when we are in those moments, the way to take yourself out of like wanting to kick yourself in the ass again, or, you know, dumb down yourself, or self-deprecate or anything like that. She has this little thing that she says, surprise, motherfucker. And I love it. I use that all the time. It's like, yeah, we did it again. Here comes more contrast. Here comes, or as like she likes to say, an agent of the universe delivering this lesson. Could be a person, a situation, whatever. An agent of the universe showing me where I'm committing to, once again, this dance with contrast, this dance with duality that I don't have to take part in anymore. So when we're not bringing in a sense of agreement in our words, our actions, our deeds, our thoughts, even our beliefs, our behaviors, our honoring of our commitments, when all of that isn't lined up, it's not an agreement in a way where we're making the God choice. What is the highest and best choice in any situation or with any person? And when we are in our God self perspective, it's much easier to see that. So put yourself in a moment. Maybe you're remembering something from this week or this past year. Hi, Chantel. Where, you know, that old chestnut appeared again. That old situation, that scenario that keeps you in a consciousness loop, like it keeps showing up so you can have the same kind of experiences, the same kind of vibration with those experiences, the same kind of people who align with that vibration over and over and over again, but you know you're not a match for it anymore. Yet it still keeps showing up. So what is there? You're never going to source that out from the ego level of you. So take a beat, take a breath, pull back, center yourself, and call in God self, God self, God self. What is the God choice in this moment? What is the highest and best choice for all in this moment and with the least amount of resistance for all involved? And the second you ask that, the answer appears in the same instant. Why? Because you are in a different energy grid at that point. The second you call in that higher objective observer vantage point of view, you are in the universal energy matrix. This is a different grid of energy. This is an infinite grid of energy that has an inexhaustive supply of resources, of means for you to get from A to B, of answers, of solutions. This is a solution-based energy grid. Well, you will never get exhausted when you are in this grid. Why? Because it's in pure alignment with Source. When you are, yes, David, very good, for the ego to the God self, excellent. When you are in ego and you feel like you can't get out of it, just take a second, pull your energy back because you have that power. Your energy is the most precious resource that you possess, and you are in full command of it. Whatever you've adopted as a belief that puts you out of alignment with that, perhaps that's something you need to look at now. Your energy is the most precious commodity you possess, and you are in full command of it if you choose that. No one gets to play the victim anymore and go into 5D. You cannot take that mentality with you. So just command that. Command your space, command your energy. Pull it in, center yourself, and say, God self, God self, God self. You can even imagine when you're in that moment of ego and you're in that trigger, imagine you're in a different grid of energy when you're in that space, because you are. And it's contracted. And when you're in that, it keeps shrinking, it keeps shrinking, it keeps shrinking. And the only way that energy grid gets funded is with your own energy. Imagine like you're plugged into a matrix, because you are. So remember in the movie when Keanu Reeves wakes up from being plugged into the matrix and he's got that cord in the back of his skull. And it is literally his energy and many, many other people who are plugged in that are funding that matrix. It's not that far from the truth, folks. It's a finite grid that has to pull the energy from a human source, because we're all batteries. We're all walking batteries. When you're pulling your energy from your human, you're going to get exhausted. You're going to get depleted. You're going to feel hopeless. You're going to feel desperate. So imagine when you're in that space in the ego, you take your energy from one grid. You can imagine pulling it all, sucking it right back into the heart, and then calling in God self, God self, God self, and then putting it in that energy grid. And it's like billions and billions upon billions of points of light connected by lines in between these points of light. I call it the sphere of all possibilities, but it is the universal energy matrix. And the second you connect with that, you connect with all those other lights, which is an infinite source grid, an inexhaustible supply of energy. So you're not pulling from your human anymore, okay? When you make choices that are out of agreement with virtue ethics of 5D, you're pulling from your human grid of energy. This is why it's so exhausting. This is why we say, I just want to give up. I just want to go back to the way things were. I mean, yeah, it was shitty and I was unhappy and I was in a terrible relationship and I hated my job and I hated my boss and all my friends sucked. But it was just easier because I knew who I was. You have come so far, my friends. You have come so far. There isn't one of you here that's going to be watching now or watching the replay later, sometime in the future, in a future timeline, who hasn't shown up to do the work. Maybe you feel like there's more to do. There is, because we're peeling away layers like an onion right now. But that doesn't mean that you should discount who you've been, where you've been, what you've done to get you right here, right now. Honor and appreciate all the great work you've done. And understand when you're in those moments where you're triggered by a situation, a really agonizingly familiar scenario, or an agonizingly familiar person who shows up to trigger your shit again, know that you have worked so hard to get to where you are. Are you willing to sacrifice that for this person, for this event? Because the second you change your reaction so that it is different than it has been before when presented with this person, situation, umpteen times before, when you take a different stance, you choose differently, and hopefully bring in that, what is my alignment with the God choice here? You'll get the answer, believe me. And your higher self, your God self, perks up its ears and is like, ooh, she's talking to me. He's talking to me. The information, the second you ask the question, you are in a grid where the problem and the solution exist in the same instant. The question and the answer exist in the same instant. But we have to trust and believe that. I can't take the blue pill now. No, it's too late for me. I know it's probably too late for you too, David, and everyone else here too. Get comfortable with rejecting how you used to react before. Get comfortable with rejecting people and situations that used to be acceptable before. Get comfortable with it. I don't know how you're going to do it. If you need help, maybe you need coaching. If you don't know that that's what I do, that's what I do. I help you to wake up in 5D and embody and empower yourself in 5D. Because if you're not empowering yourself in 5D, you don't stabilize that vibration. You can't keep it. You just get booted out and you get booted back down to density. Our consistency is everything. So get comfortable with some level of consistency with, okay, what are my boundaries? What am I no longer energetically available to fund with my precious energy, the most precious commodity that I possess? What am I no longer available for? What kind of people am I no longer available for? Yes, it's family. Yes, it's friends. Yes, it's acquaintances. Yes, it's probably your boss. How much longer are you willing to play this charade with yourself where you think, well, I'm sort of in alignment. This part of my life is out of alignment. You're either in or you're out. I cannot make this any more simple. You're in alignment or you're out. And it's not this one part in your life that's in alignment and the other part not so much. Clean it up. Stabilize that frequency or you will get booted out of 5D. And your commitment to be here to hold this light for the planet and hold this space for the planet to transition towards, all we need is 51%. All we need is 51% of the human family to say yes to ascension, to say yes to elevated consciousness, to say yes to unity consciousness, to tip the scales of awareness. Are you willing to be part of that 51%? If you opt out of that, that's further that we all have to go. And our commitment, my commitment, is not only to myself, but it's to the collective. I want to see a happier, more joyful, more unified, more egalitarian planet. If I'm not showing up in my life to make sure those things are in agreement with me, with my shit, with my areas of my life, how do I hope to stabilize that frequency for the collective? Oh, that's awesome, Tammy. Oh, yes. I've been working together with Tammy for years, and this is something we've discussed many times, so I am so happy for you. I am so happy for you. Leaving my medical career. Yes, 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 yes. Sure, I'm being your cheerleader today, Chantal. Absolutely. And I'm happy to do it. So get comfortable with rejecting things you're no longer a match for. And you know. Don't even try to kid yourself or play the victim like, oh, I don't even know if this person is... Bullshit. I'm going to call you out on that right now. You do know. But here's the thing. When you say, I don't know, if this person is a match for me, or if this situation is a match for me. You are an ego. You're in that place where you're second guessing and you're waffling and you're going back and forth. Again, call in your God self. Call in that energy grid that is inexhaustible, with a supply of resources to give you solutions to your problems in the same instant that you ask the question about it. You do know. And so if you do know, and you're doing it anyway, you are acting out of a fear of loss. The fear of loss that says, what I'm losing is greater than the belief that I hold that there are far better benefits on the other side of rejecting the situation, rejecting this person. Releasing is another way to say it. Sounds a little bit better, softer. Releasing this person, releasing this situation, collapsing this timeline with this person, with this event, with this scenario, etc. The only reason we keep showing up and doing it is because we have a fear of loss, that what we're losing is greater than the belief that we hold that there are far better benefits on the other side of that release. Let's be honest with ourselves. I did it this week, and I had to call myself out on it. And when I was spending time in the collective and really examining this, I saw that. And when you're in this place, it is pure ego and it is exhausting. Because of what I mentioned, you're pulling from an energy grid that has an inexhaustible, a finite supply of energy. And when that's depleted, you got to pull it from your human. You got to pull it from a body part that maybe hasn't been functioning so well. So it starts to deteriorate even more into chronic pain. Or you have an emotional theme, a trigger, a trauma, that when you start using your human to pull energy for the work you need to do in this planet, you're pulling it from your trauma, because that is an energy grid too. And it's like you will always feel like 5 steps forward, 10 steps back. I'm doing this, but I'm doing this as this person I identify who has trauma, who has drama, who has guilt, who has suffering, who has shame, who has blame, who has been the victim, who has been abused, who has been hated, who has been unloved. If you're coming at your energy work with that level of perspective and vantage point of view, you are going to run yourself into the ground, and quickly. And you will probably have a whole host of physical reactions as the result of pulling from that emotional trauma to fund what you're doing. You'll feel it physically, and sooner rather than later, because the energies are moving really, really fast. They're really accelerated now. So we have to be careful. And that's why it's so important to talk about this. We have to be careful. What are we funding? And are we really, really helping that person who, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a husband or a wife, or maybe it's a longtime friend or peer or boss. If we keep dumbing our energetic frequency down to placate that person so that they can understand us, whatever the fuck that means, or they can comprehend where we're coming from, spoiler, they never will, or understand our woo, or we hopefully can get them on board if we meet them where they're at. That is one of the biggest self-deceptions ever, is to dumb down your energetic vibration, thinking that you're actually lending a hand to that person, so you meet them where they're at. No. You as a divine warrior of the light, and if you're really here and you're committed to being that for the planet, you have to hold your vibration high, almost like it's kind of on a pedestal, because it is, kind of. Because it has to be a beacon for others so they can see you. So that they can say, who's that up there? I want that. And not in a pejorative way, like no one's above or below, but I think you know what I'm going for here, that you become such a bright light, such a beacon, that they want to do whatever they can to get to where you are. You are doing a major disservice from the planet if you are in self-deception thinking, well, I'll dumb down my light. I'll bring my harmonic down a few octaves so I can meet this person that, if I'm honest, they're probably never going to really change anyway. Meet them where they're at, and maybe they'll kind of get what's going on. No. The invitation is to have people raise up in frequency. And you've worked so hard to get to where you are. Your energetic vibration came with maybe some pain, maybe some suffering, definitely some hard work. It came with some sacrifices, didn't it? Are you willing to go back to square one for the sake of another person that you're not in charge of them? They have their own agency. They have their own autonomy. You're not in charge of their decisions. And you are under no obligation to dumb down your frequency to be that assist for someone else. The real assist is holding onto your light, keeping it in integrity, stabilizing it by making sure you hold those virtue ethics. You're committing to your agreements, to yourself and to the planet. You are in alignment in thought, deed, and action. When you stabilize in those virtue ethics, you are stabilizing 5D. And from that place, you are a beacon of light. You are a beacon of love. You are a beacon of energy. You are a beacon of inspiration. You're never going to inspire people by coming down to where they are. You're only going to inspire them by being of the light, holding your light, and so steadfast that you won't do anything to sacrifice that or dumb it down or lower it for the sake of another's comfort. And it sounds harsh, but I guarantee you, this is the way it happens. This is the way we stabilize a new frequency. Because you think, well, maybe I'll just do this, but what if everyone who is holding a great deal of light suddenly decided, oh, we're all going to go down in frequency though to help these others? Oh my God, it would be so detrimental. To me, that's worse than a horror movie. We self-deceive thinking that we'll help people that way. We actually do a lot more harm than good. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? If you are committed to your virtue ethics in 5D and your path, your mission, to be a holder of the light, to be a light leader in thought and deed, then the invitation from the universe, the universal energy matrix, is to hold fast to your light. And nothing is worth sacrificing that for. Look how far you've come, right? And anywhere we feel like, I got to give in, this is too exhausting, it's never your soul telling you that. Your soul doesn't get tired. I need to talk about this because I see this out there sometimes. Your soul is on the universal energy grid. It works off of that grid. Your soul never works off of an ego grid. Your soul never works on a finite, exhaustible supply of energy. Never, ever, ever, ever. Your soul doesn't get tired. It's you as your human that gets exhausted from living out of alignment with your soul being. Does that make sense? Do you understand the difference? I hope that resonates. So when you get in those moments, where are you living out of integrity with those virtue ethics? Where are you living out of integrity with your soul essence? Where are you living out of integrity with source? That's always going to be exhausting because the energy has to come from your human instead of your soul to do anything. Does that make sense? And collectively, I hope I've made this very clear that when we keep dumbing down our energy and deliberately lowering our octave for the sake of others maybe understanding us better, so maybe we can feel better too. Like, I just want to be understood, and we all want to be understood. But what is that worth to you? Is it worth lowering your vibration? Is it worth lowering your light? Or is it better to say, I'm not a match for this person that I feel I have to constantly make them understand me? I'm not a match for this situation any longer where I have to keep stabilizing my human in a way that makes me feel like I want to crawl out of my skin. And that lowers your vibration because you're living out of alignment with your source being, your pure soul self. We have to ask ourselves these hard questions. And we have to realize, well, what am I really willing to sacrifice here? Am I willing to sacrifice something for the comfort of maybe someone who's never really going to take that next step anyway? And we have to be honest with ourselves about that, that some of the people that maybe we've known for a long time, family members, friends, maybe they do want to understand us. In the best case scenario, maybe they do want to understand you. Maybe they do want to get some of your woo and hope that rubs off on them in some way. That's never going to happen if you dumb down your vibration to where they're at. And if we're really honest, sometimes those people, we've known them long enough, we know their traits, we know their values, we know their beliefs. Are they really going to make that next step anyway? Because if it's been this long, maybe they were really never too into committing to that or dedicating to a new way of being anyway. And that's a painful pill to swallow, but we really have to be honest with ourselves about that, because our energy is precious, and it is more precious now than ever because there is so much great work to do on this planet. And if we're not making those individual endeavors really count, how can we make the collective endeavor count? Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about what I'm talking about? Or is this settling in a place within you where you feel like, okay, I needed to hear this, or I was trying to think about this in my mind, but I didn't have the words for it, or, is it landing with you? And do you notice how I am keeping my vibration and I'm not saying that we're in a different vibrational spot. I think we're all on the same spectrum of vibration here. But do you notice how when I'm speaking my truth and I'm laying this stuff out for you guys, I am holding fast to my vibration. I'm fully in it. And I'm not sacrificing that for anybody anymore. And there are people that I've lost in my life because they didn't understand me, and they never were. And it's not my responsibility to make them understand me. They are their own person. They have their own agency. They can either align with where I am and where I'm going, and understanding that this is something that is, I hope I can give off that vibe that what I try to do is good for the collective of all. If there are people in my life that aren't on board with that, I have to let them go. My mission, my purpose, my path is far too important to dumb it down. And I'm only lighting the way forward. I won't light the way back. I'll leave a giant wake behind. I'm happy with doing that. That's why I like to teach. That's why I like to have a community of people, because what I invite people to do is like, come with me. This is where we're going. Let's create a huge wake of change. And it's not pejorative where I say people are behind me, but I am a leader. I am a natural leader. I'm a thought leader. It took me a long fucking time to own that, but I am. But I don't see people as behind me or beneath me. I see people on the journey with me. I see people linked up arm in arm, like Hands Across America. Do you guys remember that? It can get a bit lonely. Absolutely. Absolutely. Loneliness is probably one of the biggest ascension symptoms. I have a whole video about this, if that would help you. I think it might, Kathryn. I'll tag you on that. Loneliness as an ascension symptom. Very, very much so. So this brings up some great questions, hopefully, for you to journal on. Where am I dumbing down my energy for the comfort of others, and why am I doing that? So there's some human need. It's never a soul need. It's never a soul self need to dumb down your energy or lower your harmonic an octave or 10. It's always a human need. So a great question for you to journal on is, where am I dumbing down my energy for situations or people in my life? And it could be groups of people too. It could be family members at large. It could be our husband. It could be our wife. And what is my human need to do that? And when you ask that question, if you go in and journal on this, which I highly recommend you do, go after you ask it, then go right into your God self. Just call in. That's all you have to do. Center yourself, breathe, and say, God self, God self, God self. God self, God self, God self. And that answer, that solution is going to show up for you. I'm not going to say you're going to like it. You probably won't, as a matter of fact. But it is something you need to excavate. It is something you need to examine. And then release. and then release. Because it is that thing that's keeping you out of alignment with your virtue ethics. It is keeping you out of alignment with source. It is keeping you out of alignment with your soul being. This is always going to feel off. It's always going to feel like you want to crawl out of your skin. It's always going to feel like you just want to scream. Okay? And notice, if you do decide to journal on this, where do you feel that in your body, that human need? Because usually there's some physical attachment to that in the body, and you're just going to want to send the breath there, send your God self, or use that little support call-in mantra that I shared with you. Guides, teachers, angels, dragons, who are aligned with 100% pure source light. I need your help and I need it now. When we get in those moments of desperation, we're in a human need, and we get that exhaustive kind of hopelessness around us. That's a great mantra to call in, and it really saves the day. And a lot of times, you know, our spirit team members that we work with, they've never been in a body. So they don't know what we feel as a deficit when we are pulling our energy from our human. They don't know what a pain body is. The spectrum of their emotional realm isn't as vast and varied and convoluted as ours is here in 3D. So if they've never been in a body, and a lot of masters and guides, beings have not, they don't know that you are in distress until you put out that SOS. I just made a little rhyme. Does that make sense, you guys? Self-love removal is still unifying in nature. You're creating a possible catalyst for others to transform or not. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And where you're seeing this in the collective, you know, now that, you know, we've had this discussion and you're thinking about this maybe on a deeper level, when you are interacting with society and you're out in the grocery store or you're out in the post office or wherever you are out in public or out in nature, notice what you're feeling in the collective of mass consciousness when you're in an open space where you're around other humans. Is what you're picking up on reflecting back on you as something that feels like, perhaps I can clear or release this for my fellow humans? You don't have to take it on as your trauma. That's different. Please don't do that. But you can release it on behalf of humanity. I do this all the time. And because I have really good spiritual hygiene and boundaries, I'm not taking anything on that's not mine, but I will release and clear on behalf of humanity. There is a difference, okay? Know that you can do that. And if you're really here to anchor the light, hold the light, be a thought leader, a light leader, it's a nice thing to do on behalf of your fellow humans, because there are a lot of people who aren't going to wake up. It's not their contract to wake up. There are people who are our partners here in this 3D plane, to play the ones that are going to be the victims, to play the ones who are in the fear. They've taken a soul contract to be that contrast for us who are waking up. As soul beings, we all know exactly what we're doing. And there are players in this 3D role-playing game that we're all a part of that decided to take one for the team in the way that they chose to suffer as the unawakened, or they chose to be behind the veil. They are still our partners in this game. And we can send them loving, compassionate witness energy, and please do. Because even though those aren't going to be the ones that awaken on this planet, and there'll be many of them who can't, won't, don't even see this as a possibility, awaken, they, on a soul contract and from a vantage point of your God self, have decided to take one for the team this time around and play the villain. And you get to play the hero on this hero's journey. So think about that. We are all partners in this role-playing game. Yeah. And we need these folks who won't awaken, can awaken, don't even know that's a possibility, to give us this contrast so we can see that's not how I want to be. That's not who I really am. Because everything about 3D is contrast. Everything about this game that we're in is about duality. And they chose to be here to be the ones that were dualizing, polarizing. And they deserve our love because they are our partners in this game. So think about that. Okay? I'll leave you with that thought, and you can chew on that for the rest of your Sunday. Lots and lots of love and light and peace to you all. I'm sending out just a massive wave of love from my heart right now. I hope you get Buddha bumps on your arms, because it's such a massive wave of love that I'm sending you, because I feel you. I know what's going on. So lots and love and peace to all of you. Stay strong, my friends. Stay in the light. Hold fast to that light. It is the most precious thing that you possess. Don't sacrifice it. Don't dumb it down. Love and peace.